So we are moving on to a new session over here, a new discussion on the digitalization and the focus on training. Actually, a couple of people like Mr. Ajay Kumar that flagged that issue about the need of training in the new norm. And yes, there is need. And then uh, before we come to training aspects, the training, and it will be, we need to flag the need. Why do we train people? So maybe uh, let us come to Mr. Vishal Dubashi here. The panelists are Mr. Vishal Dubashi, Mr. Frederick Wharton, Mr. Shivendra Prasad Singh, Mr. Shivendra Pratap Singh, and Mr. Apsara Vasai. Mr. Vishal Dubashi is the Senior Vice President of Risk and Cost Mitigation at CFO. Mr. Shivendra Singh is the MD of the Lancers Network, and Mr. Apsara Vasai is Resident Professor in College of Insurance Institute of India. So let me quickly come to Mr. Vishal Dubashi, and let us have from him. Let's hear from him the pain points relating to fraud in the new normal, which we are trying to address through new changes in technology as well as through training. Mr. Dubashi.
Thank you so much for having me on this panel, and it's been a wonderful evening so far, and real good, interesting insights into what has happened during the COVID period. And I wish all of you all best for this report which has come out. I'm sure it will do a lot of good to the industry. So coming to your question, Dr. George, about the pain points. So first of all, let us understand what happened during the pandemic. One was that everybody was under pressure. So we are talking about not just the clients, we are talking about the employees also. So, pressure of financial and health aspects, the people were more vulnerable basically. Persons spoke about job cuts and other things. So what do you expect? The fraud triangle, as my colleague Sanjeev just mentioned. So there's an opportunity, there is a rationalization, and you have what? You have people throwing money for taking up things. What Kumar Saab said right at the beginning. So these kind of things, were the issues primarily. Second point was that due to the issue of COVID and issues regarding the mobility and movement of people, we had to depend a lot upon online channels as well as third-party vendors. So if you look, onboarding of the wrong parties, onboarding of the wrong clients, onboarding of the wrong dead channels, you have what? You have a situation where you're not able to distinguish the good from the bad, whatever methods you might use. The third one was the focus on getting back to business as usual. So there was a lot of pressure during this time. The companies wanted to get back their operational excellence, levels as before the pandemic. And you have this coupled with work from home. Okay, so we all know work from home, what happens. The temporary work from home, the digital stress and all these other matters. I think these were the overall pain points which most of the industries, most of us would have faced. And all this culminated into opportunity for a lot of fraud. So my colleagues have already spoken in the previous session about the different kind of frauds that were experienced. One important aspect which I would also delve upon, and which I've written also about, is the cyber and the online kind of frauds. Okay, things which the insurers which were earlier, they were probably not that digitized. There was a need felt for them to digitize their channels and all, and because of which they got exposed to things which were far beyond their control, or far beyond what they envisaged. So there were a lot of online kind of frauds which have been taken place, and one needs to be very, very careful there. In fact, your entire risk management perspective needs to be checked, and it has to be a very high risk going ahead. From the cyber angle, you have these Chinese gangs which are operating. You have, Fred could tell you more, but you read in the papers continuously that large organizations are being hit by huge online frauds, and insurance is no less a business which is going online. So one needs to be very, very careful of these online and cyber fraud trends which are coming up. So just wanted to add on that. And thank you again, Dr. George. Over to you again.
Yeah, yeah, thank you very much. Let me just recheck with Mr. Fred Wharton. You are listed out quite a bit of areas that are the pain points. Let us check whether there is anything more which we have missed out before I come back to all of you for solutions.
Yes, thank you, Dr. George. I don't want to take, I know there's a few additional speakers that I'd like to have the ability to speak as well. So real quick, training, the digitized training is something that, is very needed. Training in the insurance world, as we've seen it from a year ago, fraud has a complete new face in the insurance industry. This happens every few years. Fraud is continuously changing. And, most companies give fraud training, insurance fraud training, in an employee's first week on the job. And then the rest of their employment, they really don't hear about it. They don't learn about it. They don't learn about the changes. So with the digitize, I mean, this is a simple training that can go out every single year to keep your employees up to date on what is happening and what is changing in the fraud industry. What does fraud look like? How do we identify it? Do we see, do we recognize? This all has to be done, on an annual basis, and not just every few years. We got to keep our staff aware of what's going on out there and the changes that are occurring and the means to investigate it. How do we investigate it? Who do we hire to investigate this? How do we do this? Employees need to be up to date on this training, and with the digitize, we can push that out immediately to clients or to our customers, to our employees immediately. There's no gathering at a seminar. There's no gathering at a hotel. Sit down as we are today and take a 20, 30-minute update, refresh on insurance fraud. So I'm a huge proponent of digitized training and getting this out there. And that's why we've put it out there in the form of the CIAFP, the CPII. This is a means to getting everybody well trained and qualified in a simplistic manner, quickly. We can roll this out as quickly as fraud changes. We can have those courses out there in your employees' hands. So, let me turn that over to Dr. George and the other panelists here to answer in.
Right. I think between Mr. Bisal Gopashi and yourself, both of you have covered and taken full stock of the situation. And let us look at, we are sort of concluding that the digitalization has become a part of the new normal, right? So let us hear from Professor Archana Vase. What should the insurance industry do differently to protect themselves in this situation?
Thank you, Dr. George, for your question. I would like to answer it in two parts. One is what has changed specifically during new normal. So we are getting more used to the technology, because till date we were having all our operations and the processes based on physical verification of documents. So now more and more digital documents are coming. So ease of using technology is not there at every level. So slowly we need to adapt to pushing and digitalization. Second thing what I feel is that with the use of technology, more challenges have come. So we need to be more resilient. Many German companies have risk management practices and cyber management policy, but they actually don't know who to reach out or what to do. I think there need to be the specific policy at the company level. Something like whistleblower policy, which is there already in various industries, which is not specified in insurance. So today, if it needs a societal change. If I know that one of the neighbor or one of my friend is committing a fraud, I don't feel that okay, I need to inform it to the insurance company, because I feel that okay, it is between the insurance company and the person. I don't realize, or I have no awareness that I will be ending up paying more premium because of somebody else's fraudulent behavior. So these kind of, I would say that has to be a two-pronged approach. One is creating awareness about the cost of fraud which is paid by the innocent policyholder, so that everybody who is involved in the insurance system insurance ecosystem should be aware of it. And secondly, creating some kind of incentive for the insurance stakeholders also. That if there are certain intermediaries or investigators or other, they come to know that their fellow people are doing some kind of thing. There should be a complete watertight whistleblower policy, so that people should be encouraged to inform about the bad things which are happening in the industry, and we can weed out those bad practices. And as of now, in the digital world or even in the physical world, we don't have company-level policies for this. So I think in the new normal as well as in the old way of doing business, these two things become very important.
Thank you very much, Professor Vasai, for that. Let me now move on to Mr. Shivendra Prasad Singh. Mr. Shivendra Prasad Singh is from the investigation industry, and he can bring in a new perspective of things than what we are looking from the underwriters and the industry level fraud fetchers point of view. Over to you, Mr. Shivendra Prasad Singh. How do you look at the changes that happened there, and how the Indian insurance industry is trying to protect itself from this?
Right, sir. To begin with, thanks a lot for this opportunity. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, yes, yeah.
Right. So thanks a lot for this opportunity, sir. It's been a sheer pleasure working with you and your team at III in creating this survey and executing it, and subsequently working very closely with you on the report. So it's been a great experience. So thanks a lot. Now, moving on to the question at hand, sir, it's imperative from our perspective to understand that the ground has changed. So as a matter of fact, it's imperative for us, everyone in the insurance industry, to come up with the new ground rules. Now, how we were operating before March 2020 is not applicable in today's day and age. We have heard extensively about digitization. We have heard extensively about need for training. We have heard extensively about the on-ground problems. And as investigators, that's precisely what came our way as well. But before I delve into that, there's a question that's been, I've been sort of troubling me for a while. Now, why does India as an economy, as a nation, has not as of now criminalized fraud, insurance fraud? Every major economy in the world has a very strong legal recourse available for insurance industry when it comes to fighting fraud. Unfortunately, in India, in spite of the humongous numbers that we come across, there is still a big question mark about whether there is a clear legal angle under which the fraudsters can be handled. It is imperative that we address this at this point in time. So that's number one. Now, new normal is nothing but what we all cumulatively decide and define. So until we do not define the ground rules, again, I'm reiterating, unless we do not define the new rules, the new ground rules, new normal will probably wither away in few months, few quarters. So it's important for us to have a deep introspection of how we as an industry intend to address and tackle fraud in the insurance industry. I'm increasingly hearing about digitization. Yes, there are digital tools. They have been around for a while. We have been pushing it in the market for good 3 to 4 years. But it's important to understand that from an investigator's perspective, these digital tools in our parlance are nothing more than verification tools. So yes, whatever claims, whatever documents the claimants have laid out, we can use the digital tools to verify them. But when it comes to on-ground intelligence gathering and investigation, face-to-face still remains the bedrock. Now, with the whole digital aspect to it, again, as I said, we have to embrace it. We do not have a choice. There are parts of the country which are in no-go areas, and there will be part of the country which will be in no-go zones in time to come. But as an industry, it's important for us to lay the ground rules to understand this is how we, to this level of investigation we will do using online, and then when we go on the ground, hardcore on-ground investigations will take place. So from our end as investigators, element of surprise just goes away when you send someone a link and say, hey, can you come on the link and talk to us about a particular claim. So for us, the crux of our tradecraft is to go on the ground, gather intelligence first, many times covertly, then subsequently try to match it with what the claimants are claiming to be. So if these facts match, then yes, there is strength in the claimant's case. Otherwise, there is something suspicious. Now, unfortunately, in our experience in last 18 odd months, the moment you bring in, try to do your investigations through online, that element of surprise goes away. The moment you find a link in your mobile, you are, as a fraudster, you are completely ready to encounter anything that is, thrown your way. So that is something that we all have to think about. Get the right standard operating procedures for investigations going forward, keeping the pandemic in mind. It's important for us to work towards criminalizing insurance fraud. I cannot enforce, I cannot, emphasize more how, because at Lancers we do various other investigations, and we have seen wherever there is a criminalization, the fraudsters, they know that there can be a big backlash, which is strong and which will lead to legal recourse and can adversely impact the future of their life. Number three, I strongly believe that it is imperative upon IRDA to acknowledge the contribution of private insurance investigators in the insurance ecosystem. As of now, unfortunately, even though we are the sentinels of your profits, every single thing, every single report that an insurance investigator is working on is working to ensure that insurance companies do not incur a loss that can be avoided. Now, that, in my opinion, is a very pivotal role, which, the foot soldiers of insurance industry, that is us lot, we are going on the ground, fighting against the odds, many times fighting hostility. But in the grander scheme of things, the IRDA, as of now, has unfortunately not really recognized the contribution that we're making. Now, this doesn't necessarily have to be in regulation. It can be anything deemed fit. But it's imperative that someone stood up and kind of took note.
Let me ask you a related question too. Are you finding a skill gap that is standing in your way?
Certainly, sir. Certainly, there is no two ways about it. And that skill gap is related to a very bizarre phenomena that has been taking place in the insurance investigation industry for the last 20 years. I mean, I've been in this for the last 20 years, and trust me, sir, the amount that is being paid for an investigation today is not very different from what it was being paid 20 years ago. Now, what happens, even within Lancers, there have been very good insurance investigators who've been working with us for the last 20 years. But as they grow, their aspirations increase. And then there are salary hikes that they expect out of us. So the P&L of insurance investigation within Lancers was not able to afford that guy. So we had to move that chap to a different P&L, to a different division, doing more lucrative investigations for us. So it's important for everyone, again, going back to my request to the insurance industry at large, the ground has changed. It's important to lay the new ground rules. And with the skill gap, sir, if we are paying good money, it is important that we get the certified investigators. For this, we have worked tremendously hard. I mean, you, Madam Archana, we've all been involved in creating CPII. It is probably the first such certification anywhere in the world for private insurance investigators, where various insurance companies came about and contributed towards creating the curricula. So I strongly believe, sir, that it's imperative that we bring certification. We ensure that certification is the benchmark against which every single investigator is, judged. And the insurance companies need to ensure, it is for their greater good in grander scheme of things, that they will not give work to anyone who's not certified. So once we have this, we've got certified guys hitting the ground. You will see, insurance companies will end up saving much more than what they are right now.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Pratap Singh, on this. You have tracked actually quite a number of points, So let me just ask Dr. Archana Vase to have her to mention her responses to two of them. One is about legalities involved, and secondly about the skill gap. So there are more questions which I think which I'll pass on to Mr. Vishal Dubashi. But from Archana, it was very focused on these two things from your back.
I completely agree with you that even today, until and unless it's murder, nobody takes insurance fraud very seriously. If you try to register, thankfully for cyber liability, we are seeing a lot of positive response from the framework. But in other cases, what we are seeing is that there is still we are thinking about section 420 and same old section where they on their priority of the police investigation, insurance fraud is the last. So we need to have, when we are talking about a developed insurance market, we need to have separate legal sections, separate procedure to address the insurance fraud. Without that, there won't be any deterrent for a fraudster. Secondly, about the skill gap, yes, I completely agree with you that there is a huge skill gap. Many times before coming into academics, I have seen in the industry also that many times all we want at the insurance company and also is that fraudulent claim should not be paid. Because we know when it goes to the court, the way we have collected the evidences may not stand the court of law. And it's not just in insurance, it happens in other sectors also. Recently, we have seen certain cases like TACA and others where the evidences were not properly collected. So, certifications like CPII immensely help to make people aware that what is the legal way of collecting the evidences, what they should do and what they should not do. Simple thing like before doing the recording, they should take the permission and there cannot be a sting operation is not known to many investigators because they are coming from the private detective kind of background in few cases. Nothing wrong in that. They have their own advantage because of their background. But at the same time, in legal parlance, it is that proof does not become helpful. And as an industry, we are losing out even though we have got the fraudster. And that's why this kind of skill enhancement is very important part of taking it forward and stopping the frauds at the proactively, I would say, rather than just reactively the way we are doing it. Thank you.
That takes us to a different set of topics. One is about the regulators' acknowledgement of fraud investigation as a profession. Of course, remuneration is a wider matter for the entire industry to talk about. Mr. Pratap Singh has mentioned quite a few factors of interest, and especially from the regulators' point of view, what should we do about acknowledging fraud fighting and fraud investigation as a profession. So I would request Mr. Vishal Dubashi to give his views on that.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. George again. So I would like to play the devil's advocate here and just give the other side of the story also. So one point is about the business. So just to come back on the business part. So what has happened, what has changed over this year, we need to understand first, to set the context. So one is that it was very important for companies to connect with the policyholders, communicate with them, advise them, and ensure that, digitally the contracts are transpired and they go through, okay, to get them insured. Let me tell you, there was a study which was recently done, which found that almost 50% extra, policyholders, or 50% of extra potential insureds wanted to take the policy, but they were not able to. Please understand what I'm saying. 50% of policyholders, via cross-sell or via new channels, wanted to take policies online, but they were not able to because the companies did not have the complete digitized process for that. Okay, so let us understand that's one part. We are fighting for business, no doubt about it. We have to understand that the underwriting is getting lot of automated now. Future is VUCA, we all know about it. So the dynamic pricing, the automating, the pricing part and all those things. So a lot of things are happening in the interim to ensure that business comes through. So this has its drawbacks also. For example, there was another study which was done to understand the impact of digitalization on the Indian and the world atmosphere. They found that against the entire financial landscape, if there was an increase of around 5%. So when I say 5%, you go from 10 to 15% of fraud. So if there was a 5% increase on the other financial channels, for insurance it increased by around 9%. And this was a study to that effect from the developed nation. So you can imagine the kind of fraud that has increased substantially over this period. Okay, so what you have identity frauds, you have phishing, you have application frauds, you have bad debt frauds where fake policies are sold, and claims fraud I don't even need to talk about. I mean, all my colleagues have spoken about. So where is the issue? So I believe what Shiv said is one part is definitely about the skill gap. So you have the regulator needs to address this on two counts. One is that have a formalized level of certification for the investigative community and to understand their importance to the bottom line, because the industry has to survive, and the only way it's going to survive is if it's going to make at least some profits. Okay, and as Tapanji was also mentioning, running at a ratio of 115 to 120, the businesses simply don't become viable. So going ahead, one has to think about how to make the business viable. The only way to do it is contribute on the bottom line. So definitely, certification of the investigator is a very important aspect which should be taken up by the regulator. The second thing I believe is anti-fraud campaigns which should be run by the regulator. Overall, there were some campaigns against fake policies before, but I believe it should be in a much more generalized way, like the way the RBI does for the banking. You see a lot of these circulars coming, a lot of these emails coming which tells you about the do's and don'ts. I don't see that happening anywhere on the insurance space as on date. I know there are plans for it. There are plans for media campaigns, but that has not gone through, and that is very important. There's a need of the hour. I mean, this is exactly where the fraudsters are looking at the opportunity and seizing it. So that's the second part. And the third and the most important part, which my colleague Shiv and Fred also spoke about, is the training aspect. Because of the very nature of these frauds which are changing over this period, which I told you, it is due to the business constraints. We have to understand the business side of things, and looking at it from where it's coming on, new trainings, new materials, where the people are having a standardized level of efficacy. Understanding what are the aspects of investigation, desktop investigation is very critical. So we have discussed all these points in detail, but just to mention, training is a very, very important aspect. You look at it from, Nazim was speaking about the MSME frauds and all those coming in. So you have all these specialized frauds. You have the generalized frauds from health sector, from motor sector. What are you going to do if your people are not trained? I mean, the vagaries of the fraud are changing completely fraud is completely changed. I mean, I'm talking about online. I'm talking about the way that policies are taken. Sanjeev was talking about motor policies where we find that one type of vehicle is insured under a different type, say on premiums. I mean, what are you going to do about just simple exaggeration of claims and all that? So staff, the people who are on the ground doing these things need to be well educated to understand these aspects. And lastly, absolutely, I agree with Archana ji that the legal aspect has to be covered. We have to go for stricter regulation. For the same, there should be committees which should be formed. I believe III can be a very good practice track, plan on how you are going to come together and address this and take it to the regulator and try to implement to them. So I think there's a long way to go. We have certainly come this far. It's a new normal, but to see a better tomorrow, we'll have to do quite a lot of things. Okay. So back to you, George.
Thank you, Mr. Vishal. Actually, is there anything else which any of the panelists need to say? If not, because what we are trying to understand over here is there a wish list? Mr. Surendra Pratap Singh has mentioned quite a lot of things which need to be done for the industry. Professor Archana Vase has also mentioned that, and Mr. Vishal Dubashi too, and he has given some answers also. So, is there something which you all like to take 1 minute? 1 minute.
Yes, sir.
That bring out a wish list.
Yes, sir. May I?
Please.
May I, sir? Well, sir, I see this disruption as a blessing in disguise. The last normal brought us from 0.5% penetration to 3.64 odd percent penetration. Now, if India is to become the $5 trillion economy, we are looking at double-digit penetration in time to come. Now, couple this with a massive surge in digitization. Whether we like it or not, digitization is here to stay. And I would say professionalization of fraudsters, as Mr. Kant was saying in the last session. Earlier, back in the day, in mid-2000s, the fraudsters used to be, the claimant and his family. Today, it's a cartel that's primarily working. So again, I reiterate, it's important for us to take this opportunity to ensure that we set the right ground rules and we equip ourselves for the big surge that insurance penetration is going to see in next 5 to 10 years in India. So thank you, sir.
With your permission, I would like to summarize the wish list from all of us. The first is legal help from the government on the fraud investigation. Second is creating awareness by the regulator, by the insurance industry, because societal awareness is a very important part. The third is the use of digital practices, because you cannot just rely on pure digital practices. There has to be a physical practice where technology, because I believe that it's always garbage in, garbage out. So it has to be the human mind and also some artificial intelligence, which is going hand in hand to investigate the fraud. And of course, the professionalism, the training of the fraud investigator, which will help not just in new normal, but just for years to come.
Let me come back to Mr. Fred Wharton. Is there anything more you would wish to add, sir?
It's as I said, it's a passion of mine, and that's why I'm in the industry. But from 30 years of experience, we know that quality training equals quality investigators, which equals quality results and savings to the company. Simple.
Thank you very much, all the 4 panelists, Mr. Wharton, Mr. Surendra Pratap Singh, Mr. Vishal Dubashi, and Professor Archana Vase. Thank you for all the nice insights that you gave into this area. So.